We are live. Let's see if this, I'm going to reload the YouTube page and see if we're live. I'm pretty sure we are, but there's a little bit of a delay. All right. Welcome everyone to Tech Pod. This will be a fun one. We have a guest moderator, Lynn T. Tran. She's a big deal on LinkedIn. Follow her, connect with her. But I'm also super excited that we have our streaming services interns with us today, non-technical roles, of course, as always. And yeah, if you guys are interested in coming to more events like this, we really try to focus on, the innovation and just the cool roles in the tech industry, but without any coding experience. So I'm an econ major. I don't code. Vicky Liu, my co-founder, she's also an econ major, and we're really interested in the tech industry, but we don't code. And so we realize that there's actually a lot of roles, as you're about to learn about, that you don't need a coding background for. So we have events every week, usually on Thursdays. So follow us on LinkedIn if you're interested. And I will just let Lynn take it away.
So let's hype this chat up because we're gonna have the panelists come up, and this is their first time doing this, and this is my first time moderating. Everybody, let's just type in the chat. What are we excited to learn about today? And like, why are you guys here? So we want to know why you guys are here, and so that we can cater the questions specifically for you guys. So let's put in the comment what you guys are here for and what you guys are looking to learn, and then maybe we can get some hot juice from the panelists today. All right. So when are they popping up? Hey, I can't see the panelists. Hello?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. All right, let's just put them in right now and get started. I'm gonna drop off for the rest of the time, and yeah, let's get started.
Alrighty. Hi everyone. So right here we have Haley, Benji, and Patrick. So can you guys kind of like introduce yourself and what positions you guys had? And for the fun part for the audience, what was the thing that was the most exciting for you during the internship? What was the coolest thing you got to do during the internship? So why don't we start with Haley, Benji, and Patrick?
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Haley. I'm currently a rights management intern at Disney Streaming Services. I'm only 5 weeks into the internship. I'm currently doing it. But so far, some of the most exciting things have been the speaker series. So basically, they bring in like execs from all across different parts of Disney for all of the interns to kind of listen into and ask questions.
Hey everyone, my name is Benji. I'm a series PR intern at Amazon Studios. I'm only about, October 29th? I'm about a little over a month into the internship. So there hasn't been anything too crazy going on. But so far, one of my favorite parts is just being able to work on some media strategies for some upcoming shows, being able to provide some insight from, a young adult perspective, because that's what the shows are being geared towards now.
Hey everybody, I'm Patrick. I'm a senior now. I interned at Hulu this past summer. I think the coolest thing that I probably did during my internship, I'd have to say a speaker series as well. We had Beatrice Springborn come and speak to us, who's the VP of content development. And we just got to talk about normal people. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's like my favorite show of all time. And we kind of just chatted about how they acquired the rights to even have it on their platform. So that was kind of, I think, the most exciting part of my 3 months there.
Awesome. So I think this is a perfect segue to kind of talk about what you guys do on a day-to-day. So what is the day-to-day work that you guys do? How do you guys perform as an intern? And since you guys were talking about the people you guys met, who were the coolest people you get to meet? Some of the time of the interns get to meet executives or maybe even celebrities, or it's good to see all these meetings. So what was it like for you guys? So in the same order, let's go with Haley, Benji, and then Patrick.
So a day-to-day for my particular internship is a lot of Excel. basically like running through different systems we have going and confirming that like all the information in the different systems is correct. I do a lot of analysis and reporting. So it's usually just day-to-day assignments that my manager sends me in the morning, or I have a couple of long-running ones that like every Tuesday and Thursday I'll run certain reports, etc. I guess like within getting to like meet people, so I'm in the global content operations department of Disney streaming services, and so like most of my meeting people is within that. But I've actually have gotten to have like a one-on-one with the head of global content operations, which was really cool. And like he was asking me about like my plans, my future, and then we're going to be able to talk again at the end of my internship and kind of talk about what I learned, etc.
So for my specific position, being a public relations intern, usually day to day is, sending the daily briefings to the team. So that's basically, anything that's going on in the industry, anything that the team should be aware about, which is pretty important because, you want to be ahead of everything and be in the know. Additionally, in addition to that, a lot of coverage reports, anytime, there's an announcement for the show, either, series finale or upcoming show, anything like that, we will be able to track all the coverage that's been done on it, whether it's interviews or articles. So it's been a lot of that as well. Also, just working on strategies for upcoming shows, being able to provide my own like thoughts and perspective, especially with like the young adult shows, like I mentioned earlier, that's a big thing that a lot of streaming services are trying to get into now. So yeah, that's been most of my work for the past month or so.
Yeah, so I actually didn't specify. So I was an advertising operations intern this past summer. And so basically Hulu has its own advertising platform, and I did just our own server. So basically I was taught how to go about trafficking an ad. So just making sure that it was assigned to the correct campaign lead, and that, making sure that the ad was going up, say, with any type of restrictions or just in terms of age or maturity level, things like that. But then also I was pulling like third-party reports in terms of impressions. So that was getting things from like DCM, from Nielsen, and then also making sure to use those impressions to then bill clients correctly. But on top of that, it was kind of also a free internship in terms of finding out what else you're interested in. So I was also doing a project with Read the research team, and kind of just like learning how to go about analyzing a new product that Hulu had just come out with, and then kind of presenting that to leadership. So the day-to-day was kind of a mix of stuff, but it was basically me learning how to do the campaign lead job. So when they did extend an offer after the internship, they're basically sure that I'm able to do what they want for me to do post-grad. So that was kind of the whole purpose of it.
So Patrick, I think earlier you mentioned that it was a kind of like a free place for you to kind of explore. Was that already given for you, like within the, like Hulu let you do that, or was it something that you approached on your own, that you asked for a job?
Sure. So it was actually really nice. My mentors and basically my manager sat me down a couple of weeks before I even started the internship, and they're like, "What are you interested in? Like, we understand that ad ops at the end of the day might not be the thing you want to do for the rest of your life. So they're like, tell us what you're interested in. If that's content, if that's research, then we're going to make sure." Because it was something that Hulu that was also great was they created their own networking plan for me, also outside of the one that I created for myself. So I had, say, every week scheduled 2 or 3 coffee chats with like execs, with leadership, or with other just, with other teammates. And, that was across all boards. So I said, I'm really interested in kind of everything. Would that be possible? And they're like, yeah, if you want to talk to content, do it. Like I was talking to so many assistants that work on the content development team, because I, also do love TV and writing for TV. So that's something that I'm always interested in. But then also I was able to sit down with the research team. So something that I was doing, I reached out to the content insights research team, which is basically they just do research on shows. So it's like, should the streaming service pick up a second season? If so, what are they looking for in terms of that? Yeah, so it was kind of also, it was a mix of me doing it myself, because, I think something that's obviously a recommendation I'll give later on is you should and you have to. But it was also Hulu that they were incredibly willing to just to help me out in it. And whenever I asked, say, my manager, can you just get me in contact with this person? They had no issue doing it. So it was a little bit of a mix of both.
That's a good lesson for everybody to have, right? Is for us to reach out and actually be motivated to expand our opportunity. Like, don't be stuck to what we have, but expand, especially to the role that you are actually interested in. So like Haley and Benji, did you guys kind of have this similar experience where you guys get to explore, or it was still like really focused and they actually like show you more about the role itself? So Haley, you can start, and then Benji.
So with this current internship, it is very structured and in like a very specific field. So I am definitely getting a lot of like very specific data management experience with like really huge amounts of data, which are all related to shows that end up on Disney Plus. But at the internship right before this at Spotify, I kind of had a more exploratory experience where I obviously had duties that they needed me to do daily, but I got to really explore and create my own projects. So for that one, I was a little more interested in web design. So I ended up creating a website for my department that was like an internal website. So it's only for Spotify employees, but that was like a really cool experience of getting to learn all these new skills throughout the summer that I didn't quite have before that.
Yeah, and I would say for my internship, it's similar to Patrick's, I would say, from what I've experienced so far. You know, there is certain tasks and things that I'm expected to do, but there's also, you know, they encourage you to come up with your own projects, do your own research, like anything that interests you. So like I mentioned earlier, you know, we're working on researching media strategies for young adult shows. So that's something that my fellow intern and we worked on together, and we brought it to one of the publicists. Yeah, so it's definitely a nice mix because I can, you know, figure out other, you know, see what I want to do, try new things up, but I also know, you know, I'm honing in my skills on the duties that they want me to. But in my last internship at Warner Brothers, I was also doing publicity, and that one was more structured. You know, the day to day was, I had, you know, every hour was packed. There's things that I was expected to do, and that was also very nice, you know, because that was a really great introduction to my first like publicity experience. You know, having that sense of structure, and then now, you know, I have a little bit more experience, a little bit more confidence with it, and I feel more comfortable, you know, going out of my own like bubble and, you know, doing things on my own essentially.
I mean, like, so I wonder, like, with everything you guys are doing, it seems like it's a lot of work. So like, how intense do you guys think this internship is, like, in entertainment industry? Because, you know, it's always people always talk about it as it's a very, you know, tough industry. So what is your perspective on it? What have you seen, or what is it like for you guys? So let's go in order this time: Haley, Benji, and Patrick.
So I think anyone who's doing an internship in streaming services right now is going to have a lot of work, since like I'm sure anyone who like reads the trades or like went to film school like I just graduated from, you hear about like streaming wars all the time and how there's all these new streaming networks that are just expanding at such a huge rate. For right now, I'm genuinely doing like so much work every single day because like we have just so much data to get through as Disney Plus continues to expand. And I mean, I'm just guessing, I know it's been this way at Disney, but because of like the quarantining and the pandemic, people are staying inside and watching so much more content on streaming platforms than they were before. So that's once again contributing to like so much more work and like growing constantly for these companies.
Yeah, echoing what Haley said, you know, a lot more people are staying at home. A lot more content is being pushed out. A lot more content is being watched. But I mean, in my experience, like, it hasn't been, you know, a super tough experience. I'm currently in the internship right now doing, you know, a full course load at school as well. And it's definitely manageable. And as intimidating as the industry might seem, you know, everyone wants you to succeed and help you and, you know, give you connections and these experiences. So it's definitely been, you know, hasn't been a traumatizing experience or anything. It's been very, you know, calm and fun and educational.
Yeah, for me, I have to say, I think it's really dependent on which streaming service you're looking to go into. I mean, I would personally characterize Hulu as much more of a tech company rather than an entertainment company. I think that they're a tech company that has TV shows on it, to be honest. It's like, and that's kind of what you get from the vibe of it. I was surrounded by a very sort of like, wrong word to use, but like a frat-like atmosphere in a sense. Like it was, people were just willing to have a good time, and it was still virtual, and I was having a good time with everybody. And I think it's just kind of dependent on which company you're looking to go for in terms of which one fits your personality a little bit more. But Hulu in general, for me, was yes, it was a lot of work, especially with advertising. And if you're interested in going into it, advertising is a crap ton of work. It's so much, but everybody was having a good time while doing it. And it was really relaxing at the same time. And I didn't feel, say, stressed out. But I would like to, you know, echo what Haley and Benji said in terms of like, it's a lot, you know, and things are happening, but I think, and things are constantly going on, but, you know, entertainment's also like, it's all something we're all passionate about in terms of like TV and film. We all love it. So it's not like, say, you know, a finance job no shade, but it's like, it's something that you're at least passionate about. So the work that you're doing is, it's contributing to something that you really, really like. So I don't think it's as, I think, stressful as many people make it seem.
Can you guys kind of give insight on how many hours per week do these companies kind of expect you guys to do?
I know for my internship, it's 40 hours a week, so it is full time. I'm not sure if they have part-time internship opportunities, because I know my last internship I did was also full-time, but that was also in the summer. And then the one I did before that was part-time, because I was doing that while I was still in school. So that was about 3 days a week, so like 24 hours a week.
Yeah, for me, I'm not working full-time, obviously, because I'm still in school, and I need to graduate and take my classes. But I'm doing about 20-ish hours, give or take. I work, 2 days a week scheduled, and then there's sometimes meetings here and there that I need to hop on when I'm not scheduled, but obviously it's very manageable, especially with classes being online. It's kind of like a gift in disguise, essentially.
Yeah, for me, they capped me at 40. And it wasn't because I think it wasn't from like a stingy place in terms of that they didn't want to pay me. It was like, we don't expect you, we don't want you to work longer than 40 hours. And I think that was just the sort of company culture they were going for. So like, I mean, I remember one time, I think it's like a lot of college students at this point, I was like working at like 11 p.m. just because like something came to me and I was like, oh, I just want to do it now. And my manager slacked me the next morning and she's like, why were you on your computer at 11 p.m.? And I'm like, it was a mistake. And I never did it again. So it was kind of, yeah, I think it's dependent again on company culture as to how much they expect from you in terms of hours.
Awesome. So we will definitely be talking about work culture. And like, just take a little pause. Let's, for the audience, I kind of want you guys would love to hear what impressions you guys have of the entertainment industry. What are some myths that you think, what is there? And maybe like, these interns can maybe put their insights on what you guys think. For example, like I said, like entertainment industry seems like a very intense place. Or what do you guys think the entertainment industry is? Is it difficult to get in, et cetera, et cetera? So put them in the comments and let's see it. Okay, so let's kind of go back to talk about work, because you guys were talking about like the hours. Well, let's talk about work from home, because I'm assuming that some of us, I mean, for the current ones, right, the current intern, how is that experience working from home? And for Haley, I think that you work specifically, in place in the physical location, so let's hear everybody's take on it. So again, with Haley, Benji, and Patrick.
So I am work from home, and all my internships since like quarantine started have been work from home. The one nice thing about interning at tech-oriented companies is they will definitely give you more than enough equipment to be able to work. So I have a laptop set up, and I have my own monitor at this point, because that is so essential, like having 2 screens when you're working from home. But if I didn't have my own, they would easily send me one of those as well. So it's honestly hasn't been bad. Like there's definitely things I miss, like, like water cooler talk, or like getting to like go out to lunch with people. But I still feel like at the past 2 internships I've done, they've definitely made an effort to have like some sort of social interactions with me and get to know each other besides just like giving me assignments.
Yeah, similar experience for me so far. Working from home, it's a totally different experience, but Amazon Studios have done like an amazing job, especially, being like Haley said, like a tech company. Like they made sure that we had all the, necessary equipment, monitor, work laptop, whatever it may be. So it's definitely been an easy transition. It's just, like I said, it's very different working from home, but you don't get that water cooler talk like Haley said. And I feel like it's definitely been a bit harder to like, I've only been in for a month, so my experience so far is a bit limited, but just to get that like, connection, it's different. You need to come up with different ideas for how to connect with, people in the office and, build that relationship. But it's been a great experience so far. It hasn't been as stressful as I thought it would be working from home. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Benji said in terms of, I think my fear going into the internship was, how am I going to network with people to make sure they remember who I am? Because that's really the only way that you're going to get an offer, is that they like working with you and they, remember you like a few months on the line. But I think that you get very used to it. And it's, everybody was adjusting, I'd say, in the summer. And I think it was just, okay, now it was more of like, hosting still kind of happy hours whenever they could, but it was like virtual. And then also like still setting up as many coffee chats. It was kind of surprising to me, at least in terms of how much easier it is to network virtually rather than in person. Like, it's not like, oh, we have to set up a whole meeting thing and we have to, go get a coffee and it's awkward when it ends, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we have a 30-minute chunk on Zoom. All I have to do is send you a link and everybody's willing to sit down in front of their computer if they're comfortable in their own home. So it actually, on the networking side, really ended up being a lot easier. And I think it's just the amount of effort you really put in as a company as to whether you're keeping that culture or not. And I was very satisfied with what Hulu was doing. But I think that especially for people who are looking for internships next summer, companies are so much more prepared than they were this summer to do all this stuff. And I think that you should expect a much easier transition and a lot less sort of uncertainty. At least that's kind of what I felt for a few months beforehand was, oh, it's like, how's this going to go? But companies now, they really got it down. And even like some are saying that they're moving virtual permanently or giving up people options of just like staying at home. So yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to transition into than it was this year.
I always liked having Patrick answer the last because he always give a nice segue to our next topic because he mentioned culture. So let's talk about culture because I think a lot of the audience wants to hear about what is like in your particular company and how does it feel? Like I know this work from home, are they compensating that with better experience and so on? Like how do you guys feel within interning in your particular company?
I know for Disney that culture like varies a lot across different departments. There's obviously like a big emphasis on love of Disney and love of brand. So like people are constantly talking about everything from The Mandalorian to new Pixar films coming out. So it's definitely a part of the culture is just this legacy Disney has. For my department, I know it's a bit more serious than other departments because we are handling like the expansion of Disney Plus, which is now like Disney's priority brand. So it does put a bit more pressure on people, but doesn't like come out and like being like treating anyone differently. It's more that just like we all have a lot of work to do. And if anything, it means that there's a lot bigger of a conversation about collaboration during work from home. And there's a lot of meetings and talking to people all the time to make sure that like everyone's still on top of everything, even though we're in this weird virtual environment.
Yeah. For my specific department, I think from what I've experienced so far, it's definitely been, with all the content that's being produced, busy. Everyone's very goal oriented. Like they want to get their stuff done. Time is money essentially. And obviously that's been a big focus, but at the same time, they've done such a great job of making sure people feel relaxed and friendly. Like it's been an awesome environment, after hours events, Zoom happy hours, things like that, just for everyone to have a space outside of, the 9-to-5 schedule. But it's been great so far. It hasn't been anything, horrible. It's been amazing. So I can't speak more highly of it.
Yeah, same for me. I think the culture was something that I missed so much and I was very, very surprised by because, I think it was the company I worked at prior the last summer, it was also a tech company, but it was a lot of an older environment in terms of like people were in their 30s and they're like, I was like, do you want to go to a bar? And they're like, I have to go to my kids at home. And I'm like, all right, I can't relate to that whatsoever. So it's like to come to Hulu where everybody's very young. Like my manager was in his like late 20s and all of my coworkers were in their early 20s. And I was like, okay, this is something that I could really go for. But yeah, it was something similar to say Amazon. It was like, happy hours and gossip, but it was like fun gossip. It wasn't about other people. It was just about our own lives. And, even on Slack, like you can make Slack entertaining by just sending memes to each other, or it's like even being on Zoom, then you can always just kind of like chat about what everybody else is doing behind their back, which is kind of funny. But it's like, I think that especially for a virtual environment, they kept the company culture really going. But, for Hulu specifically, at least, it's like, I know that one event we have throughout it happens one time throughout the summer and, they kind of host all their advertisers within Madison Square Garden. Everybody just, kind of has a great time for a day. And that's like where we just, it's a new front. So basically like where Hulu just like presents all of its new shows for the year. So it's, and it's that kind of stuff, but people I know always go out after work and have a great time. So I again, can't speak any better about it. It was great.
So, like people, when they talk about culture, they also really want to know about, how to apply the idea of culture into their interviews. So I feel like that's where we're going to be talking about because people really want to know how to get those interviews. So can we talk about, okay, for you guys, like what was the process of applying to these internships like? Do you have any tips on making it to the interview rounds for like the interviewers themselves?
So for me, I feel like I have like a very specific experience because I happen to have this incredibly niche bunch of experiences in rights and kind of like it's an area between like legal and business. So I can kind of go over Spotify and Disney pretty quickly since those are both tech companies. But for Spotify, I had to apply in like a year ago. So it was October of last year for this year's summer internship. And I had been happening to work in music licensing. So it was like basically over 70% of what I ended up doing at Spotify was stuff I'd already been doing. And crazy enough, I actually I was working for UMG. So I'd actually ended up emailing the people I was later interviewing with at Spotify just about right stuff, like following up on contracts they had with us. And then when we were interviewing the interviews, I was like, I think we've actually interacted before over email, which definitely like made me stand out compared to other people they were interviewing because they knew I was like working at a professional level and had worked at a professional level with them before. For Disney, it was once again, I think one thing that helped me a lot was I was actually interviewing for full-time jobs at Disney at the time. And there was one that was in the department that sits like right next to the department I'm at now. And I just like didn't quite have the Excel skills for them to hire me. But I had a good relationship with the recruiter and had been talking to her a lot. So she said, if you see anything else at Disney, like please let me know. So when this rights management internship came up and it was full time, I emailed her immediately and she was like, yes, I will forward your resume. Like the other team really liked you. So I'll make sure that like the right person sees your resume. So it's just kind of like a building block of connections that was able to get me into the interviews.
Yeah, to some extent, I can completely agree with that. The entertainment industry is a very small circle. It's a very small world. Everyone knows everyone like one way or another. And that's been my experience. And when I applied last summer for Warner Brothers, a lot of them knew people at Amazon. And so that connection before I even knew it was like kind of already there. And then fast forward, I applied in March, I think it was. I was connected with one of the publicists and I sent her an email with my resume, cover letter, and all the necessary information. And then going from there, interview was scheduled. And I think that one of the biggest things was probably my past experience at Warner Brothers, having also that specific publicity, public relations experience. And that's, I feel like something that might have made me stand out, but also, getting these internships, like, and interviews, like it's all about connections. Like, I feel like the biggest thing I stress this a lot, but to all my younger friends that are applying to internships, but, reach out to people. Like if you've worked with someone in the past, they might know someone, like, especially in in times like these, like it is so important. LinkedIn's your best friend. Like you need to just, make these connections. And, ended up getting, I applied for summer and then COVID happened and they weren't hiring any interns for summer. And then end of summer, I got an offer for a fall internship, which I was super ecstatic about. But yeah, I think, just like Haley said, like one connection led to another. So that's like one of the most important things I would say.
Could you elaborate, Benji, on like connecting with people? Like how, like, can you dive into the process of actually like reaching out and how to best do that? Because the entertainment sector is hard. Like personally, I've tried to do that as well, and I was able to connect with some, but it was also due to my connections who I knew. They introduced me to their connection, so it's like a warm intro. But how was it for you?
I mean, my experience, I think, I was very shy to connect with people at first, especially before my last internship. It was definitely intimidating, like working at such a prestigious company with all these people. You don't really know what to say, what to do. And then obviously, you start getting brought in and feeling more comfortable. And, just going up to someone like Patrick said, like coffee chats, or Haley said, like water cooler talks, like those are so important because not only are you starting to build those relationships, but then, it might turn into a lunch instead of a coffee chat, or it might turn into something, a bit longer than a 20-minute conversation. And from there, what I've been doing is just, keeping in contact. Like if you're going to reach out to someone for a connection and try and connect with them and, build a relationship, you shouldn't just do it because, oh, I want them to connect me with this person or this company. You want to do it because you want to, have that relationship, have that connection, like for yourself as a person. So what I've been doing, I mean, I still keep in contact with a majority of the people from my last internship, whether it's Netflix parties or, just FaceTimes with, some of them, and the other intern I worked with. Like, you need to find creative ways, I would say, to build these connections, because, cold emailing someone or messaging someone on LinkedIn, like, that's just the start. But then, work for getting a chat, like a coffee chat. And I mean, obviously now it's a Zoom chat, but it's definitely, baby steps first.
Right. People in the audience, you can connect with us on LinkedIn, right? So, yeah. So, Patrick, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think my one word of advice is network. Like, it is going to be very difficult to break through in any industry. It's not even entertainment without networking with somebody. And I think for me, it was like, my experience was like all based off luck as well. It was like, I worked at one tech company the summer after my sophomore year. I was going through people who had worked there previously. I added her on LinkedIn like that September. And then, like, on a whim, I was obviously searching for jobs like throughout all my junior year, and I was like, let's just apply to Hulu for giggles. And I went on LinkedIn, and I literally was like, and I looked up just whether I knew anybody, and like, sure enough, like, she had worked at that previous company that I had worked at that summer, and now she was working at Hulu. And I was like, hey, like, would you be able to chat with me? She's like, yeah, don't even worry about it. I'll give you a referral. I know you know what you're doing if you worked there. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And that's the only reason I got the job. Like, you have thousands of people applying to all these internships, and the only way that your resume is going to get there is if you got a referral from somebody, or if you obviously have like any type of experience like Haley did that was really tailored to the position. But for me, it was it was kind of like luck, and based on the fact that I knew everybody, and then that somebody referred me. And then once I was at the internship, like as Benji was saying, it's like you have to create connections with people, and it's obviously you're going to meet people who like you just know you're not going to vibe with. But those people that you do vibe with, like, just make sure that you keep that. So like for me, it wasn't like, say, messaging them like constantly. It was like, we add each other on Instagram, we laugh on at each other's stories, and like, that's it. And that's okay. Like, we still have a great friendship, but like, they also understand that you're not besties, So it's just a matter of still like making sure that you're making connections that are genuine, because people can also tell when it's not, when you're just kind of like using them for something. So yeah, I think that's my advice in terms of at least like getting that foot in the door and then maintaining what you got.
Yeah, so a little recap, everybody, right? So network, because it's going to be very hard just to do code applications, and make sure that the conversations are not transactional, that you're not expecting anything out of the other person, but rather just to learn, to know them as a person, and or to have a very specific niche like Haley. So hone on those and market your skills in that sense. So can you guys talk about the actual interviewing process? How many interviews do you have to go through, and what was it really like? Like, preparing for it, and during the interview.
So for the Disney application, it actually moved really, really fast. I think the internships were only up for a couple of days to a week on LinkedIn. And so I happened to come across it because I was on the job hunt, and like I applied immediately, and they moved very fast. I had a recruiter call me first for a phone screening, which I think is pretty standard. And then like just talk to her about my experience to see whether or not it was actually worth passing me on to the people reading the applications for the job. And then for Disney, I only had one interview, which was with the head of my department. I am working with a tiny department, so I don't think and at the time I was hired, they only had 2 employees in it. So I really only needed to talk to one person, but depending on what department you're going into, you could talk to like up to 4 people. I know for Spot IFI, I had 4 interviews. And I mean, for me, once again, it was like very niche. So it was mostly just like me trying to showcase that I did have already prior knowledge of everything that was in the job description, and then kind of elaborating on what else might not have been included on the job description and kind of selling myself on those duties as well. And then, yeah, I got all in all, the process took like a week and a half. And I know it's just because like Disney was trying to move really fast. I don't think they had summer internships just because of everything going on. So they were just trying to get the fall interns going as quickly as possible.
My interview process, like I mentioned, earlier, I applied in March, I think like middle of March, for a summer internship. And I think it was about a week later that I got an interview with 3 of my direct supervisors, my now direct supervisors. And that was, you know, a very great interview. I think, you know, these interviews, they all, like I said, you know, these companies seem very intimidating, and at times it is, but it was a very, you know, it was a very casual conversation. They just want to know more about you, what your passions are, like what you've worked on in the past. So, you know, obviously talking about my past experience at Warner Brothers, what I did, because, you know, almost like the role description was almost exactly what I had been doing in the past. So after that, you know, and sharing that, you know, it's more just selling yourself. You know, you've already sold your skills. Now it's at that point, you know, it's your personality, who you are, if they feel like they can mesh with you, because that's a huge thing. You know, you could be studying exactly what they want and have done, you know, have had all the experience that they ask of you, but personality is a very, very big thing. And I don't think that's talked about enough, because, you know, you're working in direct contact with all these different people, and it's such an important aspect of the internship and in any job. And then end of August, you know, after I was told that they weren't taking on any interns for summer, end of August, I got reached out to and was offered the fall internship. And at that point, you know, it had been like 3-4 months since we'd last connected. So that was just, you know, we had another Zoom call, I think it was, to just touch base, you know, go over the duties and the hours and the scheduling and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, that was my experience. It was a great experience. Went pretty smooth, I would say.
Question, can you guys also elaborate on whether there was a technical component, or was it mostly behavioral as well? Yeah, you can go ahead, Patrick. So Patrick and
Sure.
Shane and Haley, if you guys have anything to add on to that.
Yeah, so for me, yes, I had a phone screen with a recruiter, and then within like a couple of days, I had a phone screen then with my manager, and then I had a final like interview, a Zoom interview with my supervisors, all within, like, it took really 2 weeks. It was probably the fastest interview process I've had. I think, yeah, it's basically saying what Benji said, like, it is a personality test. They never asked me anything about, they were like, can you do Excel? And I was like, yeah. And then they were like, all right, that's all we need. And then, because, you know, the thing is, like, with that resume screening, they already know that you have all the prior experience and the skills you need. And from that point on, it's basically just the test of whether you mesh. And you know, I think you hear this so often, but my one piece of advice, like, just be yourself, because at the end of the day, it's like, you also don't want to have a crappy time at that company. And you can tell by that interview whether those people enjoy talking to you, whether you enjoy talking to them. And it's like with my supervisors from the get-go, I was like, yeah, we're like already joking around this interview, like it's going to be great. But, you know, I've also had interviews in the past where I can just like tell that person's not really interested in what I have to say. And I'm like, then why would I want to work at this company in the first place? And yeah, so I think, again, what Benji was saying, it is fully a personality test, and obviously like be prepared with behavioral questions, but also come into it being ready to just kind of showcase your personality and just seeing how the vibe is, you know?
Question for you, Patrick. Was there any specific question that kind of stood out that they asked? And for the rest of you guys too, like, were there any like question that you think that people should be prepared to answer? Like, you think it's always gonna pop up in the entertainment industry?
Be prepared to answer what your favorite show is on these streaming services, because they want to know whether you actually know what this company's doing. And for me, it was like, I wasn't even that familiar with Hulu's programming, because I was mainly just watching what shows they had acquired, but I wasn't like familiar with their originals. So I like binged 3 of their shows within like a week, and I was like, all right, which one of these can like at least like chat about a lot? And then ever since then, obviously I've like fallen in love with all their programs, but it was like, I even put, say, at the bottom of my resume, I put like an interest line, and just like, you know, snagged in like a couple of the shows that I had watched, and I had a question about it at the end, because I was like, do you just have any questions about my resume? And they're like, yeah, what did you think of this show? Because we see that it's on your resume. And we just had like a talk for like 5 minutes about it. And I think that's kind of what sealed the deal. And they, you know, and do your research on the company, just what they're doing, what the competition looks like. Because as Haley mentioned before, like, it really is streaming wars. Like, this is the future of the industry, and they want to know whether you're also whether you kind of at least know what's going on, and it's not just kind of like, you know, you're not going to be as big of an asset as they hope that you are.
I guess to kind of like touch on some of the stuff Patrick was talking about, I definitely wholly agree with a lot of it is personality, as much as you do kind of like elaborate sometimes, especially with things that are like not fully technical. I wouldn't really call Excel like a technical internship, but like you're gonna need to kind of like prove a little bit that you know it. For the job I was applying for before Disney, within Disney, but not the internship, I did have to take an Excel test, which I was like not as prepared to do as I should have been. And also during that time, I was also interviewing in person because they do them together. And I really liked the department, but I did feel like something wasn't quite clicking. And it was a little bit of a strain conversationally. And so when I didn't get it, I was like, this kind of makes sense to me and I'm not sure it was the right fit. But then when I was interviewing for the internship I'm currently at, me and my supervisor hit it off. Like you said, we were kind of joking throughout it, just like a lot of shared interests. And it was just so easy that I felt very confident coming out of that interview that I was going to have this position. So I'd say for most non-technical internships, like don't expect a technical component. I've never had to do any sort of technical component for an internship, but for actual like jobs that you might have to.
Benji?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Patrick and Haley have said everything that I was planning on saying. I think the only thing that I could probably add is, in the interview, like they want, same thing in regards to the shows, like they want to see that they want to know that you're actually watching the content. You're not just, pulling stuff out of thin air and saying, yeah, I watched this, but you don't actually know what it is. I think one of the biggest things to also keep in mind is keep up with the trades. So Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, TV Line, TV Guide, like all these big trades, these are the Wrap. These are all so important because you have a direct, link to what's going on in the industry, what's going on in, different studios, networks, streaming services. And, you want to be aware of what's going on. And in some interviews, they might ask you, like, what do you think about this situation that's been going on in the industry? And if you aren't prepared to answer that, then, who knows? So that's definitely one big thing. I would say, I definitely found it useful to keep up with the trades. I still do. I get the notifications in my email all morning. And another big thing I think is over preparing for your internship, for your interview might not be the best thing, as much as people say like prep, practice. Sometimes, there's so much stress when you do that you put on yourself, and it might not be the best thing. Like Patrick said, it's a personality thing. Like just be yourself, you already have your experiences, what your experiences are. And yeah, at that point, just selling yourself, but don't put too much stress on it because, I think we've all had interviews and we all know like it's just a conversation. They just want to get to know you.
In terms of that prep that Benji was mentioning, like really the only thing that I do is like on my notes sheet, I just put down what like behavioral questions I'm going to assume, because you can just look up online typical behavioral questions and just like put like 2 bullets of examples you can give of just like the event, and don't like write it out, but just so you like know what you can at least talk about. And then you can, then at least you're still yourself, but like you're prepped in terms of what examples you can give, because you have to, give examples. It can't just be like, oh, I have good skills because of this and that's it. It's like, but I don't think that there's really a necessity to do any more prep than that, because then it just kind of comes off as stoic, Oh, you're muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, awesome. So thank you for answering. So we're gonna start letting the audience ask the questions. So audience, please bomb this chat with the questions for the people. Ask them what their favorite shows are. Sure, go ahead and do that. And we're gonna start asking. Let me see if I can. So Casey Johnson asked, is it easier to land a role if you worked in entertainment prior? So Haley mentioned that she was interning at Spotify, and Benji mentioned Warner Media.
I definitely think it helps a lot. One thing I would say is I don't think it's necessary for you to if you want to go into film or TV production, I don't think that you only need to have internships in those places necessarily. Like one thing that helped me is I did some internships in music and then came back to film and TV, because it's really highly competitive no matter what industry you're in. But if you have a slightly different set of skills, maybe that's something that internship's looking for. Like for Universal Music Group, I was doing film and television syncs. They were getting almost all music students applying, but no one who knew a lot about film and TV. So that made me stand out there. And then once I came back to film and TV, I had a lot of music clearing experience, which is something that people who are traditionally working in film and TV might not have. So I don't think it's like, as much as you're working toward a goal, it doesn't mean every single internship you have leading up to that goal has to be exactly that.
For me, I think it does help. I would say that just from, the people I've met, the other interns, most of them have had past experiences. Some of them, have gone from music to TV or vice versa. So being in that realm, I think it does give you a little bit of help and getting noticed. But at the same time, for me, I got lucky when I applied, last summer to Warner Brothers. Like, I didn't have an official PR experience. Like, I just applied, got lucky, had a great interview. Like, it was everything just perfectly worked. And then what I did was, after that experience, in all the positions I'm in on and off campus at school, I used that PR experience, to those positions. And then during the interview, I was talking about other stuff other than, my past internship. I was talking about what I was doing on campus in this position, So I think it does help, if you have past experience or you're sort of in the entertainment, but it's not, end all be all. Like, it's also a huge personality thing. Like I said, like, some person can have all the experience needed, but if they, don't mesh well, if they're, not just a genuinely kind person, like, it might not work out.
Yeah, I think that I don't think it's necessary. It's a boost in terms of just how much your network just grows. It's like something that I also really recommend doing during internships. It's like, just pay, like, if you have a Slack, just go through like everybody and like get their email onto a spreadsheet, like a separate one, just so you have it there. Like, I have a whole doc that's just like Hulu networking, and I have everybody's email in the entire company just to make sure I know that I have it so I don't lose it. But it opens up your network to like insane stuff. It's something that you don't have to cold call or cold email. It's like, oh, you can like mention, I interned here actually this past summer, and they're like, all right, cool. Like, it's a lot easier than saying like, I'm a student, I'm in need of a job, help me. But in terms of like skills, like, they really are entertainment. Like, they don't really care in the sense of like that they're just like, they know. It really is. I even saw like one of the comments in the chat. It really is about who you know, and that's why a lot of people that say like, have a connection already in high school. I'm sorry, in college. My God, in college, like, they get that job before you do because you just didn't have that connection, And like, it's unfortunate that it is that way, but we all have to kind of come to terms with it. So I think that what this internship kind of does for you, it just really opens up your network in crazy ways that you don't have to really kind of like fend for all this like crazy context and like going on Hunter.io or whatever and like looking up random emails, So I think that's the biggest perk of it.
So next question, Rosie A. I have no production or media experience, but do have a lot in marketing and digital experience. Any tips for what skills specifically entertainment companies look for when choosing candidates? Things that they can leverage. So like stuff like a portfolio and so on. What do you guys think?
I don't have a ton of personal marketing experience, but thinking about like my friends who have, I think definitely actually marketing is one of those skills that like every single industry needs. So even if you don't necessarily have like media marketing experience, especially if you have anything with brand partnerships, that's going to be immediately like useful to them. Just like think about the kind of things they're saying in the job description and to make sure you're using those keywords to describe what you were doing, even if it wasn't necessarily in the same realm.
Can you elaborate, Haley, on brand partnership and how people can get experience? What do you think are some examples?
I just know at like the last 3 companies I've worked at, like the amount of time they spend on branding, because that is such a huge part of entertainment, is having a very cohesive brand for the company you're working for and partnering with brands that also embrace those values or show off a kind of value that you're trying to like bring into your brand. I mean, I don't have a ton of personal brand partnership experience, but I know that definitely like talking to people who are working in those areas, they had like before they ended up at say like UMG or Disney or Spotify, they were doing things that weren't necessarily like having to do with music or film and TV. They just had that experience of being able to like work collaboratively and like build a marketing vision together cohesively with like someone who wasn't necessarily like in their company.
Lynn, I was going to ask, could you repeat the question? Because you broke up a little bit and I only heard the last end of it. So I couldn't hear the question.
Patrick, do you want to remind me what my question was? Oh, right, it was Rosie. It was Rosie's question, right? So Rosie has no production or media experience, but do have lots of marketing and digital experience. Any tips on what skills entertainment companies are looking for when choosing candidates? So Haley mentioned brand partnership. What do you think are some skills or some like very specific experience that's going to help people leverage themselves?
I think, I mean, just in my experience, I didn't have any PR experience in the past. Like, it was only after my sophomore year when I got an internship. That was my first like official experience. But I started realizing that after my interview and after the internship, I started looking back at the stuff I was doing on campus and the positions I've had and those experiences. And I realized that I was doing, a lot of marketing, a lot of public relations, like a lot of communications within those positions without even like, thinking about it. It was just like something I was doing. And certain things, I didn't realize what they were. I was just doing them. So I think, trying to just leverage those skills you have into, talk and like your experiences and your jobs or whatever it may be. I think that's the best thing to do, and then you can, apply that to whatever position it may be. I think it's just, starting, taking the time to like take your skills, like hone them in with, smaller things, whatever it may be. Like for me, it was going into student government, working with this group, being on this board. So that's where I started honing in my skills. And then once I got, the internship, then I was able to like expand it. So I think it's just, finding opportunities now where you can easily, hone in those skills that you have, whether it's marketing or whatever it may be. And then, once an interview opportunity happens, then you can leverage yourself and talk about what you've done with those skills and those positions.
Yeah, I was actually a marketing intern in that previous internship before Hulu. And my one tip, you only really need, say, design experience if you're going to be a designer. And so, but on the other hand, it's like if anything else marketing related, like really hone in on writing skills, something that I suck at personally. It's like a lot of marketing is writing. So whether that is PR or whether you're even doing product marketing, which is very, it's a cool, really cool position. It's a lot of product marketing is writing, and other even marketing. It's like a lot of, I think my one advice is just like, you're going to be able to really learn on the spot in terms of marketing, because a lot of it's also just kind of common sense as to like how people act and what you think is going to, work best. It's probably, gut feeling is, I think, something that I've at least noticed in marketing to be true. But in terms of entertainment, it's really keeping up with it's something that we mentioned before, but it's like keeping up with the industry is just the most important thing. Because say if you're trying to work in marketing on just a show, like you have to know, okay, is there other candidates? So like say you're like working on a dystopian show. There's so many dystopian shows. So how are you going to market that to be any different from the ones that are already in the market? I use market like 3 times, but yeah, but in terms of like production stuff, I wouldn't worry too much on having prior experience. Maybe just like being on a film set's the most important part before you get a job. But with PA positions, if that's what you're even asking about, it's like a lot of that's, again, through networking, and they're going to teach you on the spot what you should be doing, but just really kind of know the ins and outs of equipment, and then you're good to go, I think.
Can you guys talk more about like your program experience? Because you guys have been talking about like really soft skills here. So I'm assuming that the hard skills that the programs are going to teach you, is that correct? Or what's your experience with that?
Yeah, most of the hard skills come definitely like with it, because like your managers are gonna have to teach you things no matter what. Like systems are different in every single company. So like if you're like me, where you're doing a lot of data management, you're gonna have to relearn entire like systems every single time you take a new position. So like when that's happening, they're gonna be more patient with you. So for me personally, like I said, my Excel skills were weaker than I wanted them to be before this internship, and now because I've been able to like have the patience and the time to work on them, like I feel very strong in that. And it wasn't something that I needed to have immediately. It was just I needed to be able to show the potential to work hard. I think that's something they're looking for, especially when it comes to hard skills. If you show that you've worked very hard and you're willing to like have that kind of industry in your position, then they're like, yeah, sure, they can learn anything. So they're going to actually put the time into learning it.
Yeah, I mean, same experience for me. A lot of what I've been doing, a lot of the skills have just been learned on the job or from my past experience. But similar, like in saying that as well, you know, some of the stuff that I was doing at my last internship, whether it was like a coverage report or something like that, like the way the format is totally different. The way, you know, people want it to be sent to them and laid out, it's totally different. So I had to learn, you know, for this department now, I had to learn, you know, totally new format, which isn't like the craziest thing. But it just, you know, a lot of it is learning on the spot, you know, like you can't really be prepared for most of what you're going to be doing. Like Patrick said, you know, it's common sense in some of this cases. But I would say, you know, just honing in your writing skills, I think, is the biggest thing for like public relations. That's probably one of the most important things. But yeah, most of it, you know, you're just going to be learning on the spot, and the teams will always be patient with you. You know, they wouldn't have brought you on if, you know, they didn't want to work with you and help you grow.
Yeah, I mean, I only knew how to do Excel, and then within you just kind of go with, at least like for me, it was a really like a 2-week rigorous program as to just telling me everything that I have to do, and then you learn on the spot. You know, it's like, I think at least for me, it's like I can't learn through looking at a PowerPoint, which I think is typical for a lot of people. So yeah, again, it's like through that interview, it's that personality test, and then they know that based off your resume, you've worked hard enough and you know how to put in the effort, so you're going to learn it anyway. Because like, you know, after a while, like sure, these programs are complicated, but like you'll get the hang of it sooner or later. And I think that they understand that as well. At least with everybody else during my internship, I was like, I'm freaking out, I don't know what to do, and they're like, it's going to be fine. And sure enough, by the end of it, it was very, very easy. So you'll all get the hang of it in terms of what they teach you.
They asked, Nyla asked, what advice would you give to students if they have their internship canceled and trying to get interviews with companies? Do you guys think that people who have their internship canceled, should they put that on their resume that they got these acceptance? Or what do you guys think?
That's a really hard one. I mean, I guess like Benji is gonna be able to speak on this more than anyone, but I think like one thing to do is if you're still a student and you're gonna be able to have time for an internship in the future, you should definitely keep in contact with the people who hired you and check in consistently, because they are going to have you be a first pick for whenever those internships do start up again. I don't really know if you should put on your resume if you got accepted to something. I think it might depend on the company and whether like, yeah, that's hard. I don't know what you guys think. I might defer to the other two panelists.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that, because from my experience, when the internship, they didn't bring on any interns over summer. Like that was the last, you know, internship that I was kind of focusing on working towards. And so I ended up just taking summer classes, you know, and then thank God everything worked out and I got reached out to for a fall internship. But I would say the biggest thing you can do, because I've seen it with my own friends who I was applying with, where, you know, especially one of my friends who I interned with last summer, you know, we still keep in contact with best friends. And we were talking about like internships getting canceled because we were applying to like the same ones. And the biggest thing I can say, which happened with her, is she got an offer and it got canceled. And then she kept in contact with the recruiter, you know, followed up with her. And when an opportunity became available to remotely intern in fall, she got, you know, she got an offer. So that's what I would say about that. I'm not too sure I don't think it would be very beneficial to put it on your resume. But, you know, I think just keeping in contact with the recruiter and the hiring team is probably your best friend in that case.
I'm going to give an emphatic no. I think it's a very bad idea to put it on there because, you know, it's just like you don't put down a job where, you know, you haven't had a great relationship with the manager and maybe something just went wrong. The whole point of the resume is that, like, I always think about it this way. It's like, would you be willing to give that person the contact to your manager for them to speak of, like, of what you did? And if you never got the internship, then they can't speak to any of the skills that you learned there. And like, sure, that's a nice thing to put on that. But yeah, it's like you still have the contact to that recruiter. Like and like you can always bring that up in your interview. Like say, like, yeah, I had these plans. Unfortunately, they fell through. And then they at least can like keep that in their mind. But I wouldn't really, don't put down anything on your resume that you didn't actually do, because I think it's going to come back and bite you in the butt later on.
This is an interesting question that we have here. Where do you think streaming services are headed in the future? Because I think you guys are seeing it firsthand. What are you guys' take on
I'm really interested to see how the streaming wars kind of evolve. I don't think they're going to happen the way that we all think they will. Like, for example, people thought Quibi was going to be something that was like going to have a huge impact on the market. And because it came out when it did, it just got like immediately annihilated. So for one thing, I think streaming services that are already established are going to do nothing but grow. Like I said, with Disney, like their plans for Disney Plus are just like on such a faster track than they ever anticipated because they expect it to be big. They didn't expect everyone to be stuck at home 24/7 with their kids. So now they're able to grow so much faster than they intended to. And I'm assuming it'll probably be similar with Hulu and Netflix, which are having probably much more user engagement than they would have otherwise. But for for streaming services trying to come up right now, I'll be interested to see if they're able to take advantage of people staying at home and actually make it work, or if they'll kind of get killed by everything else that's kind of killing businesses right now.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what I was planning on saying. I think, it's going to be interesting to see how this streaming wars plays out, especially, with these incoming streaming services like Haley mentioned, like Quibi. Like everyone thought it was going to be the biggest thing, and it ended up, not. And I just think, it's a pretty saturated market already. And like Haley said, I can't echo this enough. Like the ones that are well known and are big and are successful, those ones are going to keep growing, and it's going to be interesting to see how the smaller ones or lesser well known streaming services, they come into it and play the field.
Yeah, I agree with Haley in terms of I think whoever's here is here to stay, and they're not going anywhere. But it is going to be fascinating, I'd say. I'm also not familiar with rights and stuff like that, but like say all that content that Netflix has, and all these people are kind of coming in. Once Netflix starts to say lose shows that they don't have the rights to anymore because it expired, like I love like nice conspiracy theories as to like, are we gonna just go back to a quote unquote cable box again, where you just have you buy all these streaming services at once and you like kind of flip through them? That's going to be fascinating. I think that's a possibility because, you're already seeing bundles with like Disney Plus, ESPN, and Hulu. Like, who says that it can't just be like literally all 10 of these streaming services, surf through what you want, pay $100 a month, So yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting, but I do have to say, like, you even see with HBO Max, like HBO Max, whoever does their marketing, like God help them, but like nobody knows what it is. And it's like, I think that's another thing. Like somebody has to like, all these like new streaming services really have to figure out like what makes them different. And I don't think that anybody has managed to do that yet necessarily.
All right. So let's close this out and kind of talk about if there's anything you guys want to promote, anything, how can these, the people who are watching best reach out to you guys? If there's anything you guys are working on, and let's talk about that.
So I know quite a few of you have already added me on LinkedIn. I'm sorry I haven't gone through all my LinkedIn requests yet, but yeah, definitely LinkedIn is the best place to contact me. And I'd love to chat with you guys about my experience or any questions I didn't get time to answer here. I also have a personal website. It's just my name, which you can see up there, .weebly.com. That has everything I've worked on over the past couple of years. So before this, I also made a couple documentary films, which you can find on there. I have a bunch of like writing samples from previous internships because I was doing a little bit of publicity at Universal Music Group and a lot of photography. So if you guys want to just peruse that and kind of see what else I've been working on creatively outside of my like data management niche.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of you guys have added me on LinkedIn already. Like, I'm more than happy to chat with anyone that has any questions. I personally, didn't know anyone in the entertainment industry when I first came in. And I think that's what made it so intimidating. And then, slowly started expanding my network and, doing this. Obviously, I think this is an amazing, platform to network. So yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions like about publicity or my specific internship or anything like that, like feel free to message me on LinkedIn. I'm on my phone probably 24/7. I would be more if there were more hours in the day. And yeah, I'm happy to chat with anyone. Not really working on anything too crazy right now that I need to share with everyone. Just normal, school and work, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, add me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat with anyone if anyone has any questions that I wasn't able to answer here.
Yeah, same with me. LinkedIn is a good place to go. I'm on there a lot. I think more than you, like other people. But also just like plug my Insta. I'm always on my Insta, Patty_Cott. Go for it. But other than that, I'm also not working on anything. But yeah.
Can you spell your Instagram thing again? What is that word? Letter by letter.
PATTY_KOT. I have some funny Instagram stories, so you're welcome in advance.
Awesome. Catch me
I'm gonna
on
give
that.
you a follow. I'm gonna give you a follow. It better.
You won't regret it. You're gonna laugh your ass off, I promise.
All right, I will follow you. Thanks so much, everyone. That was an awesome panel. Thanks to Lynn for being an awesome guest moderator too. And make sure you guys follow TechPod on LinkedIn if you want to see more events like this. Join our newsletter if you want more job postings in the non-technical side of tech industry. So yeah, thanks everyone. Hope you have a good night.
Forgot to plug myself. Also,
Oh yeah,
I can do
Lynn's
LinkedIn.
site. Go ahead.
No, nothing about Lynn's site. Just type my name. Yep, right here. Exactly like that. First thing pop up.
Yes.
Awesome.
Connect with Lynn on LinkedIn. All right. Have a good night, everyone. See ya.